the progressive in name only, the fake progressive, who I am predicting to not have Bernie Sanders as her running mate. The elite are going to screw over Bernie Sanders again. The media is going to take on the narrative that she is his progressive fighter. The status quo is going to remain the same. We're not going to see revolutionary change with Elizabeth Warren. Things will get better with her. It'll be much better than Donald Trump's presidency, but we won't see this meaningful change. The military, the Pentagon is going to have more power than the president. The banks are going to print money again once we have the crash, and they're going to stimulate the economy again and create the next bubble. And there isn't going to be a $15 minimum wage passed. I mean, that's just my gut feeling what's going to happen once the Democrats take control of the House, since they should have done so back in 2010. And that's what the Kabbalah reveals to us. And even she doesn't want to abolish private insurance. She doesn't want to abolish private insurance because when we go to Elizabeth Warren's page here, she and her colleagues introduced legislation to hold insurance companies accountable and strengthen consumer protections. So she was looking to build on Obamacare, but she didn't want to abolish the private insurance that is the problem in the first place. Elizabeth Warren's health care plan does not abolish private insurance. This is how you know this whole thing is a scam, that this is not a real progressive movement, that this is a movement under control in the hands of the top 1% and the oligarchs that run the government. But let's talk about how Elizabeth Warren is going to be better than Donald Trump. She isn't going to roll back environment regulations. She's going to regulate the environment. It's not going to be a disaster like Donald Trump's doing today. She is going to repeal the disastrous tax bill and lower the deficit. She's going to raise taxes on the wealthy and corporations. Our fiscal situation is going to be better. We're going to spend more on education and whatnot. Elizabeth Warren's presidency is going to cover more people, provide people with more health insurance. It's not going to be this retarded government that we have today under Donald Trump in the extreme far right wing. But Elizabeth Warren is still going to be under control of big money donors, because Elizabeth said that she wasn't going to take the money right now, but in the general election she is going to take the money. Like, obviously Donald Trump has all this campaign money coming in, but Warren was like, okay, if you get to the general election, then I'm going to take your money. Elizabeth is from Oklahoma, so she relates to people from these red states. So-called radical socialists that the retarded right is calling Elizabeth. She does not embrace the socialist label like Bernie Sanders did. She just says it's wrong to call me socialist. She believes in markets and that markets work. Elizabeth said that I am a capitalist to my bones, but markets need rules. And if Elizabeth Warren is really genuine, then what we need is a mixed economy, that we need a market with rules. You can't just have a game with no rules and have complete chaos. So I agree with her, but if she intends to preserve the same capitalist system that we have working for the wealthy, right? This corporate oligarch state capitalist system, then it's a quasi-progressive movement. That's what it is. Elizabeth Warren's dream running mate wasn't even a hard-fighting progressive FDR. It was a Republican. It was Theodore Roosevelt. Granted, Theodore Roosevelt wanted to break up the trusts. I certainly hope that Elizabeth's going to break up the trusts, but I'm proceeding with skepticism that it's really going to happen, because in actuality, she registered as a Republican. She registered as a Democrat in 1996, and she grew up in Oklahoma. She grew up a Republican. What is up with this centrist party embracing all these nominees that grow up in conservative backgrounds. I'm going to predict Gillibrand in 2028. Hillary Clinton was a Goldwater Girl. She was in a Republican household. She's completely Republican-like. How is this? How is this that we have another frontrunner in the Democratic Party who started out as a conservative? You have to question this. I really hope that Elizabeth is who he says she is, but I'm really skeptical. I am not going to see a revolutionary progressive movement. I won't see that. It's going to be like Obama's presidency. It's going to be better than the Republicans, but status quo remains the same. She was a registered Republican. She changed her party registration from Republican to Democrat in 1996, the year 96. It is the Masonic occult that rule over our society. It's knowledge. It is Freemason that equals 96. We talk about the party of white males and Fox News being launched in 1996. It's white male that equals 96. Pretty interesting how many of these Freemasonic secret societies are under the control of rich white people. 1996, year numerology, 25. You know, Trump equals 25, racist equals 25. Who she's right up against? She went to Rutgers, she taught at Harvard, it's Rutgers, it's Barack, who should be the next Democratic president. The last one was Barack Obama. She was in academia. EW, Elizabeth Warren, academia equals 28. She'd be president until the year 28. World War III, WW, Woodrow Wilson, the first president in academia. Woodrow Wilson. Then this war being caused by Donald Trump and his connections with the Russians. His open collaboration with Putin and the Russian government and with the deep state. This is what this is all about. The rich and the wealthy run the system. Fake progressive. Elizabeth Warren. All coming out of the book of Revelation in this coming stock market crash that's going to come with the buffoon in our office, a narcissistic chief who thinks he knows more than the generals, who thinks he knows more than the scientists, that climate change is a hoax, a complete clown. The right wing is the wing of anti-intellectualism. They openly supported a guy who was a globalist for the top 1%. The liberals wanted Bernie Sanders. They won't let Bernie Sanders get anywhere close to the White House, but the Republican line cheerlead Donald Trump. It is the racist right wing that supported this narcissist that got caught up with this rhetoric. Huge rhetoric. More to come on that in the next video. The master manipulator Donald Trump, who enlisted as a Republican so he could dupe the most global, moronic, uneducated voters in the country. That is Donald John Trump. This is what his scam presidency was all about, helping the wealthy and trying to repeal Obamacare for millions of people. Have all these wealthy people in his cabinet. The Republican Party is completely in the hands of the top 1%. It completely is. The Republican Party completely is. But you know something else too. That growing up, that even in her early days in academia, that she was a diehard conservative. That she was a registered Republican. Is this person really going to be the hardcore progressive that we need? Like Bernie Sanders, who had the same consistent positions for over 40, 50 years? Are we as consistent and hardline as Bernie Sanders? I'm proceeding with skepticism here. She is going to be a better president than Donald Trump. I'd already take her over any Republican out there. But are we going to see the status quo remain the same? Are we not going to see this progressive change? Records for the time Warren spent living in Pennsylvania and Massachusetts make clear that she was a registered Republican for at least several years of her mid-career adult life. It wasn't until 1996 when Warren was 47 years old, a newly minted Harvard law professor, that she changed her registration from Republican to Democrat. So is she a classic Republican and she's using this chance to be an opportunist to go out there and have her own movement of herself. I don't know. It's hard to tell. It goes both ways here. You go the complete cynic route, or you go the fact that Warren now believes in examining the empirical evidence. And being in academia would change those perceptions that ended up not being true at all. It is Republican that equals 47. It is also 47 degrees in the Masonic compass. Elizabeth Warren changing her registration at 47 years of age. According to Warren, in the 6th presidential election, she voted for 1996. She cast her ballot for just one GOP nominee. That is her word of mouth, and she rationalizes this by saying that she was just never political. Now, her friends and colleagues agree that she wasn't much of an activist in her youth or the early part of her career. By a review of Warren's early scholarship and interviews with more than 20 friends and colleagues, this is the 20 election, through her academic career reveal a longer conservative track record that has not been fully explored. Her conservatism centered not on social issues like abortion or anything, but on economics. Economics, trickle-down economics. Just let the market play itself. Elizabeth believed in that, and then she says that she is still a capitalist to her bones. Wake up, people! It's Bernie or bust! Bernie or bust! He is the brother! Bernie Blood Brother! That's my nickname for him. This guy stands up for the brothers in the hood. This guy stands up for everyone in this country who feels heavy burdened by taxes and by the healthcare industry. So Katrina Hillary, one of her best friends in high school, they talked politics a lot actually, so this contradicts it. So she talked politics a lot, welfare. So she was the flaming liberal. That Liz was a diehard Republican, and now we swapped. She swapped. She was surprisingly anti-consumer in her attitude, says one of her colleagues at the U of T of Austin. I remember the first time I became aware of her as a political person. I heard her speak. I almost fell off my chair, says Gary Francon. She definitely changed. It's absolutely clear that something happened. Well, what happened? What happened to this hardcore Republican stance? Hopefully it is that she looked at the empirical evidence. Is there still some conservative values that she is clinging on to? This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm breaking down this theory here. And when we examine her career in academia, she's a true believer in free markets, to a vicious bashing enforcer of fair markets, a moderate Republican to one of the most liberal senators out there. She was only focused on the dominant theoretical theory. Oh, the free markets are efficient, they can't do any wrong. I don't need any numbers. I don't need any empirical evidence. I don't need the numbers. The market plays itself. So she traveled to bankruptcy courts to review thousands of individual cases. Was it really bankruptcy fraud? Was it really people lying about being able to pay back and to just squeeze through their bankruptcy? But that was not the case when she examined the evidence. She was recruited onto, and this is what it says here. It was a situation that closely resembled her own family who struggled financially rather than irresponsible deadbeats. So it was a matter of, having a healthcare catastrophe happen to you, or something happens and you're not able to work. This is what she's talking about here. Bankruptcy in a healthcare system that's happening today. And she isn't a radical left-winger. These right-wing lunatics are completely, their head is far up their asshole. It drives me crazy when she She's described as radical left-winger. She moved from moderate conservative to moderate liberal. When you look at consumer debt with advocates of consumers in America, you begin to think that the capitalist machine is out of line. Bernie's views have stayed the same. Warren heard about the stories of people filing for bankruptcy, and she knows that it is unfettered capitalism that is the problem. But is she willing to defend capitalism on principle from a real Democratic Socialist movement? And she even wrote a paper in the late 1970s, early 1980s. Let's see. There is more to this, too. What was one of her papers out there that she wrote here? I read through this piece here. One of her first papers took on the issue of utilities. Unprecedented price hikes was it caused by big bad regulations, and Bill Clinton was calling it out. Elizabeth argued that they were just overregulated, that you let this laissez-faire system work itself, that everything's going to come down in the magic wand, it's going to work its course. She wrote this: eliminating regulatory lag will end the need for frequent rate hearings and will thus reduce the administrative costs of regulation. She described us liberal economists as fallacious arguments based on unscrutinized, long accepted conventional wisdom. That's how she described it as. It was such a pro-utility paper. She would never say such a thing. She did not present the consumer viewpoint, the underlying policies governing it. The profit motive was not accounted for in that regard. So Warren is saying that this is all empirical evidence, that she followed the theory, and she trusted the theory on principle in theoretical assumptions. But the empirical evidence, it was deeply misleading. And she went out. She set to prove that they were not a bunch of cheaters, people going out there filing bankruptcy there. Bankruptcy was a big part of her life. She knows that bankruptcies can destroy families, it completes chaos, it creates instability, it impacts the economy a lot. And America has one of the highest bankruptcy rates in the modern industrialized world. A poorly designed system designed to get people bankrupt and in debt. All because of gouging consumers and having unregulated monopolies. She may be conservative. The rest explains the rest of her journey to the top here. They go on about the bankruptcy bill and all of this, but this is where her conservative principles started. That she was a Republican before she became a liberal. I really hope she is a progressive, but as you see through Gematria and the Kabbalah and what she has said about, not taking the big money donors until the general election, we're not going to scrap Obamacare and get rid of the insurance companies. We're just going to build on the ACA and hold insurance companies accountable. Are we really going to... Insurance companies are going to write this fucking bill. It's all fugazi. It's all a scam here. Hope this is not another neoliberal presidency here, because center right Bill Clinton and Bernie Sanders, the only one who's real out there, and Elizabeth Warren is going to go out there and take the big money in the general election. Just the status quo is going to be preserved. Is she really a secret Republican? Because that is really the biggest conspiracy out there. That she is a closet Republican. I certainly hope that we have a plan to almost completely eliminate bankruptcy in this country, to have a single payer for all system that can almost do away with the insurance companies completely, to have a Green New Deal and create these new jobs in the South and whatnot, what the Democrats need to do to invest in clean energy. Some good things will come out of her presidency, but the banks will cash in on the student loan crisis and the cycle is going to repeat itself. The Federal Reserve, there's no effort to repeal it, to have the Fed in control of the Treasury instead of the multinational banks. She voted against the Fed bill. Hardly a progressive movement. Maybe the closest thing to being progressive, more so than Obama and Clinton. But status quo remains the same, and I sure do know this, that these Democrats sure like putting these, former Republicans, allegedly, as their nominees. And Gillibrand will be the next one in 2028, from the conservative district in New York, and being from a family of wealthy lawyers and a lobbyist. Her father's a lobbyist. Corporate Oligarchy 101. By Elizabeth Warren's presidency is going to be much better than Donald Trump's. Raise taxes on the wealthy. Don't cut everything. It'll be better, but the status quo remains the same.